Hey there, welcome to Synth Seeker. My name is Luke. Today we are looking at the Nordwave 2 performance synthesizer. This is another one synth video where I basically take one of the synths out of my collection and use within Ableton, make a very basic Berlin School sort of piece just to be able to compare between synths in my collection and just understand what the feel is, what the tonality is, the timbres and things like that. And just talk a little bit about the panel and things like that. I haven't done one of these in a few months because I've been working on getting my album done. But that's done. It's slotted. Comes out Monday. Or it's out on Bandcamp now, but it'll hit all the streaming services on Monday. So, hey, that's a lot of pressure off. So let's go back to playing with the toys. So the way this is working, just to recap if you haven't seen any of the other videos, is this is running into a little interface into my DAW here. I'm using Ableton. And within Ableton, I have some delay and reverb set up, although I am going to use the onboard synth effects. I'll let you know when I use the Ableton stuff. And the reason I do that is because we're going to use a single synth to make this stuff. So I'll record some clips, bounce them to audio, apply. It's better to, so you don't like clip the reverb tails and delay tails, things like that. I'll just apply the effects in the DAW. In addition to we may use some off the synth too. Speaking of this, the effects in the Nordwave 2 are actually really nice. The reverb in particular is excellent. All right, let's get started. So here's our basic sounds. Right, it's just an init sound, a sawtooth wave. I'm going to make some very basic sounds. Berlin School does well with just plain stuff, plucks and things like that. I do have a few patches I made previously that are stored in the machine. I'll show you those towards the end. But this synth is 4-part multi-timbral, which means there are 4 layers that you can use. Each layer is a copy of the panel. So depending on which layer you have active, right, the controls for that affect that layer. So we'll start with layer 1. This is a synth, but also a sampler. It has some basic FM. It's got what they call wavetables, but they're not scannable wavetables. They're more like the textures, an organ-like timbre, a flute-like timbre. It has a bunch of virtual analog stuff, and that's a topic for the podcast. Do we need to say virtual analog anymore? Like virtual? It's like analog, everything. Virtual analog is so close to analog. I don't know. The purists will be upset with me. This is a completely digital synth, and it has samples. And I've actually unloaded most of the samples from this. I just keep a few that I like floating around. We'll get into those. I much prefer to sample things and put them in here. Anyway. So let's make a basic pluck, all right? All right, so here's our ADSR for our amplitude, or like our VCA. So we'll bring our sustain all the way down, bring our attack down. We've got some decay here. I want to pluck. Now, the Nordwave 2 has a nice thing on the amplitude attack part of its envelope. It's got this thing, it's called transient, and if we turn that on, I know you can't see this. I'm not trying to get a great shot of the panel. Really, it's about the sound. But if you turn on this transient, what it does is the initial attack of the amplitude envelope has a real sharp spike in it. So, I don't know if you can hear that. Here's without. You'll play the same note. So there's an A with a little decay and no sustain. We turn on that transient. You feel it, there's a real sharp pluck like at the beginning, and you can affect how soft it is. It's still present, but you can soften it up a little bit. And it's nice for things like plucks, or you want to simulate a pick string or a hammer strike on something. So we'll keep that on there, but a little soft. And then we'll bring our filter in. All right, this is our filter section. There's a bunch of different filters in here. I'm just going to use a low pass 24. We're going to turn it all the way down. We're going to set these are ADSR for the filter section. And this is how much of the envelope takes effect. We'll turn that up. we'll bring our sustain down, our attack down, and we'll bring in some decay. A little resonance. That's a basic pluck shape. Maybe we want it to ring out a little bit. We'll add some release. A little more envelope. Make it a little sharper at the initial. All right, and we'll put some delay and reverb on it. I'll use the inline effects right now. So we'll turn on some reverb. We will go, it's got a really nice hall. And it's also got what it calls cathedral, which is new. When this came out, it was new. The Nord leads did not have this cathedral reverb in them. And it's basically like spacey black hole style. You could turn on the chorale to give it like a detuned. Interesting. And then you can affect whether it's just standard or whether there's a high pass or a low pass filter applied to it here. There's the dark low pass. That's the high pass, the bright, and that's regular. But we will leave the chorale off. I wanted to demonstrate that, but I am going to apply delay in, I'll show you some presets I made that use all the effects later, but I'm going to actually apply the delay reverb in the DAW. I think that's actually, that VCA should be a little less. There we go. I like the sharp attack, but not too sharp. All right, and we will throw a little phaser on there. So there's some 7 effects in line that are modulation effects. There we go. All right, and we'll, there's a nice delay in here. Let me demonstrate that. There's a wet dry, all the basics for a nice delay. You could do feedback, and then tempo, which you can tempo sync, which I will. And I'd like that to be a dotted eighth delay. A little less on the phaser, I think. A little more on the filter envelope. Get a little buzz on the top of that. All right, so that's the delay there. Now let me turn it off, and I'll just use an Ableton dotted eighth delay, the echo device. Double check, make sure that's what I want it to be at dotted eighth. What's our tempo at right now? Let's listen to a click. Much slower. So you're perfectly capable of using the delay and reverb on the synth. They're excellent. I'm just going to use the ones in Ableton because I'm going to print audio and I don't want the tails to get clipped. All right, so enough of the metronome here. So now that we have a basic sawtooth pluck with some delay and reverb on it, let's just play with a few of the various waveforms. just to give you a taste. This is not a synth review. It's not an exhaustive walkthrough of every feature of the synth, but just dialing in some sounds quickly. It's very easy to do on this panel. So we're in the basic category. We're looking at sawtooth. You've got all the usual suspects. Square, various sizes of pulse. All right, and then you've got what it calls its shape waveforms, which is things like triangle, saw, square, half sine, parabolic. But you can use this oscillator control to morph between different shapes. Like that, and then. So if you want to do pulse width, modulation, things like that, you can do that in here. Another category would be the shaped sine, which is kind of, it's not wave folding exactly, but it is definitely sort of shifting the shape of the sine. All right, it's like a slight shift on each of the various flavors of the thing, of the waveform. It's got a bunch of multi-oscillators, so this is a dual saw, an octave above, or a saw with a sub-saw. And how detuned is it? So even though it's a single oscillator, you can get a lot of the effects of a multi-oscillator setup. And that can be modulated. There's your saw with a fifth above it. Anyway, I'm not going to go through all of them. It does have a bunch of super saws or super waveforms, so that being a saw, you can get a square variant. Your organ variant. This is a performance-oriented synth, right? And the Nord stuff gets used all over the place. There's a lot of worship and stuff like that. You know, people use these in churches a lot. There's a big market there, and so there's always an organ. And variants for bright variants of the super saw, things like that, and then a bunch of sync oscillators. Right? If we go to like a sawtooth, and that's your classic saw sync. And now there's a dedicated oscillator envelope up here, like a modulation envelope. So it's just attack decay or attack release decay. So we can set this and say, all right, let's use this saw as a pluck. Let's sync it though a little bit so that it has, when you strike it, let's see, and we'll apply that to oscillator control. Oh, I'm an idiot. That's, it's a modulation envelope, not modulation oscillator. That would be the LFO here. So let's use the LFO for that. So assign the LFO to LFO control, set its rate low, and then there we go. Bring the rate up a little bit. Right, it's a little much, but we'll bring it back down. So you can get a lot of motion going with just a few tweaks to the panel. Right? All right, let's record something and then print it. So what do? We'll just stay in A minor here. And although I don't need to set it in the DAW explicitly to play it, we might want to transpose later, so I'll keep it in key. All right, let's turn our metronome on, and let's record a loop. All right, so we'll keep that. We'll give it a play here. Now let's do a variant of that. Let me print it really quick. And I'll edit the video so we don't have to watch the printing, but all right, so there we go. Now so that's printed here. Let's do a variant. We'll keep the same basic pluck. We'll just change the wave from being a saw to being a square, and we will change it from a phaser to a chorus. And one nice thing about this keyboard, it has an EQ built into it, and I'm going to push the high and pull the lows just a little bit. And let's darken the filter. All right, and let's record this as just a simple like ducka-ducka style Berlin. We'll do root 5th octave. Let's do this. All right, just a little tiny filter sweep for some motion there. All right, now if we play those together, let's do this. All right, and there's our little bed. All right, let's put a bass underneath it. So let's do this. We'll go to a new sound. Oh, I did not save that. Let's see. Let's use one of the ones I've already got prepared here. So let's say. All right, let's turn off our delay and reverb. Actually, this is actually one of the factory presets. Let's see what that sounds like underneath. Gets the job done. That bed of plucks is a little on the sharp side. That sync is a little shrill, but you know, good enough for now. Let's record this bass line, shall we? Print that. All right, there we go. Let's put that out here. Okay, and give that a whirl. I had a little aftertouch vibrato kicking in on that first note. That's fine. That gets the job done. And let's put a pad on there. Now, a pad I've got prepared already. I've got this little, this is a patch I made last night, it sounds like. So let's talk about sound design on the Nordwave 2, right? So this is a patch that uses all 4 layers. Unlike other synths, so you got sort of you have different approaches to sound design, right? And when you have a synth that has multiple layers like this, or say the Korg multi-poly, or any of the Korg pi synths, multi-poly wave state. Let's see, the third wave from Groove Synthesis, or even just 2 layers. The Hydrasynth Deluxe is 2 layers. What else? I think the Summit is 2 layers. What is it? The Blofeld, I think it's 16 layers, right? So whenever you got a synth that thinks in layers, you can use very simple sounds on the layers and then additively put them together to build something up. So this sound, right, is made up of 4 layers. Let's just quickly listen to them. One of them is all right, so that is one of the wavetables in here, the ICE wavetable. And we've got some phaser applied to it, a little EQ, some delay, and some reverb. So if I turn all these off, this is what the basic waveform is like. Right, it's got a little filtering happening with the filter envelope. If we bring in the effect, there it is with our phaser, bring our EQ in. That just pushes the top end a little bit. And then our delay. Right, and then finally our reverb. So that's 1 layer, and every layer has the full panel, right, on this particular synth. So layer 1 has its own filter, its own effects, its own EQ, and things like that. So that's layer 1. Layer 2 is doing this. Right, that's a saw that is again synced, and it's moving through the sync. It's got some chorus on it, some delay, and some reverb. So let's turn these all off again. That's the basic synth sound, right? You start with very simple things. Apply some effects, right? So here's our chorus, our EQ and delay. Just a little bit of delay, and then again a reverb. And just a little reverb. So we've got these. This was our first. This was our second. Our third layer this is a multi-saw, so multiple saw playing a fundamental and then a fifth above. Right? And this just has a little ensemble chorus and a tiny bit of reverb. Right, but its envelopes are set so that it fades in. So when we listen to it in conjunction with the others, right, they all sort of fade in together. And then lastly, on the fourth layer, I don't know if you can hear it, it's real faint. There's a bell shimmer. I'm going to bring it up here. I've got another sound that isn't a pad, it's a pluck. Let me show you what that sample sounds like actually. It's this. It's like a glockenspiel bell, but on this synth, it's just using this tiny bit of shimmer. You hear it at the very end there. And so when we layer them all together, right, so So we build these sounds up by taking simple things, layering them together, applying effects to them individually, and the culmination of it all can do interesting things, right? All right, so let's put a pad below our system here. All right, let's record this. Print that. All right, there we go. And so that ought to do it. All right, so that's what this is. This is an archive record of Nord Wave 2 in a sort of Berlin School-esque context. You could call it maybe synthwave. This synth lends itself very well to synthwave, to like 80s sounds. It's super bright. With a lot of variations on sync sounds that are very classic sort of synthwave 80s sounds. And I said I would run through a few presets. I don't have very many presets loaded on here. I've got a couple bases, things like right, these are all sort of sample-based, mixing samples with synths. The clock room. I said in my video about the Wave Nord synths in general, there are a lot of performance modulations on here. So you've got velocity, mod wheel, pedal, and aftertouch. And while I don't have, I've got a Moog expression pedal sitting in the closet. What I tend to use is this +3 from Endorphins and Loop Pop. And I've got this set up on the pedal input. Although this patch isn't making use of it, but if I wanted to say sweep the filter, I would hold down pedal, turn the filter knob. It gets a little green light to indicate that there's a modulation source applied to it. And now when I bring it back and move this pedal, right? So you can use it's like having an extra mod wheel for me, effectively, when this is engaged. But you can do it with a foot pedal, right? And you do the same way. So this synth doesn't have a mod matrix, right? A lot of software synths and a lot of synths, modern synths, basically have something that's a matrix, like a grid, where you say, here's the things you want to do the modulating, LFOs and envelopes and things like that, and here are all the targets you want, and you basically go to the grid and dial in how much you want. This synth doesn't use a mod matrix. It basically has performance mod switches, and you have to hold the matrix in your head, basically. So I can map this pedal, I mapped it to filter, but I could also map it to like reverb, wet, dry, right? So if I set reverb to, let's do this. Burp. Oh, here, we'll set reverb to nothing, and we'll map pedal to reverb. And so now not only does the pedal affect the filter lit up here, but it also is affecting the reverb wet dry. So right? So it has the capabilities of being a mod matrix. That is, these four performance modulations can be mapped to almost anything on here. And then additionally, there is a modulation envelope for the oscillator. The LFO can be mapped to the oscillator control or the pitch or to the filter. It's pretty limited. You can go watch the other Nord video if you want to understand the limitations of what this has. But from a performance perspective, it works pretty well. Anyway, we keep running through some sounds here. I'm not going to audition a ton of these, but I have kept most of the, it comes with like 500 presets. I think I'm down to 18. I've deleted all but about 18 of them. Right. If you're into ambient, it's definitely a pad machine. And it has a ton of, it's got some of the Symphobia and Project Sam synth libraries in it, sample libraries. What's nice about this is you can make your own samples, which I tend to do more often than I use their samples. But once you buy the synth, their whole sound library is just available. You don't pay extra for when they add new sample libraries. It's just, here you go. Right. So really nice string samples and things like that. It's not trying to be a perfect sampler, right? So it's trying to be a performance sampler. So if you've got, if you're using VSTs in your DAW and you're loading, you know, I don't even remember. I'm not up on what the cool hip orchestral sample libraries are. Like East West was big back in the day when I was doing film scoring, right? If you've got a big orchestral library, this is not going to be better than that or more realistic than that, but it's good enough to, in the mix, and there's quite a lot of stuff in there. Let's see, a few other things. You got your, right, Nord's always good with their pianos. And I think that's about it. I'm not going to run through a bunch of stuff. Like I said, I've only got about 18 presets in here. These are the ones I've built recently. And everything I make typically has a ton of layers on it because I just like that thick thing. Anyway, so that is the Nord Wave 2. This is a one synth video just talking about doing it in a Berlin school sort of setting. I like this synth a lot. I'm going to keep it for a while. I really like the sampling because it effectively is an infinite engine synth at that point because you can just sample anything into it. The sample software that comes with it's really great. Not perfect, but it's very good. I have a sample robot, which I use for creating sample libraries from other things for other purposes. Sample robot does a better job of, because it's very explicit, like as far as assigning pitches to keys and ranges. The Nord sample editor software does it automatically, so you feed it a single recording. You could do it manually, but essentially the simplest workflow is you feed it a recording with a bunch of samples of notes, and it says, oh, I can figure out what those notes are, and then assigns them smartly across the keyboard. The problem is if you're using it to sample other synthesizers and maybe sounds that are shifting timbrally, it can get confused and assign them to the wrong slot, and you have to go in and manually fix them. But in general, it's pretty awesome. If you're sampling things like, you know, a person or if you're sampling acoustic instruments, it's a dream, super, super quick, but not a ton of options. But, you know, again, this is a performance synth. It gets the job done. Really, that's about it. So, hey, thanks for spending time with me here at Synth Seeker. I think I'm going to do a video on modulation. Someone asked some questions around that. I'll use this synth for the performance modulation stuff, and then I'll pull another one in for a different one. Hey, thanks. Talk to you later. And hope the rest of your week's easy. See ya.